There are some in the pro-Palestine movement, I'm sure you'll know this, who have criticized you for what they think is your overriding focus just on Netanyahu, on treating Netanyahu and his admittedly far-right government as the chief problem, rather than Israel itself, or at least Israel's bipartisan consensus on genocide, on apartheid, on settlement. So I just want to clarify with you, Senator, you would agree, would you not, that even if Netanyahu is replaced in October's elections, and we all hope he loses, the Israeli opposition leaders aren't much better. They all support the war in Iran. They all support the genocide in Gaza. They all support settlements.
That is a very good question by Mehdi Hassan, and curious about Bernie's answer. We'll find out in a second. But most American politicians are pretending this is all about Netanyahu, and once he leaves, that we're going to get Jimmy Carter as president of Israel or prime minister of Israel, and that peace is going to blossom everywhere. Yeah, I was curious whether that is true, and mainly what Bernie thinks in this case. So why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, Bernie seems to have a very nuanced approach to this. It's not just about Benjamin Netanyahu for Bernie Sanders. So let's see what he had to say about that.
What is, in my view, one of the real great tragedies that is taking place in Israel? You're right. It's not just. It would be easy to say, well, you had a terrible prime minister, get rid of him, and things will be all right. What has happened, and I don't fully understand why, I think it has a lot to do with the media in Israel as well, is I think many ordinary Israelis do not understand to what degree their nation has now become a pariah in the world community. And it does disturb me that I think in too many ways, I mean, it's a chicken and egg. Netanyahu has encouraged that, brought that about, but it is a reality that right now among the population in Israel, you have a significant movement that has moved to the right. And I would hope that there will be brave leaders in Israel who will take that on.
But none of the current ones, unfortunately, seem to meet that criteria. Right. I think we can agree.
Right.
So we are going to dig into whether or not Bernie is right about the public sentiment in Israel. But I want to show you what other politicians are saying, just so you have something to compare it to, just so you can maybe appreciate a little bit more what Bernie had to say. So let's hear what Gavin Newsom had to say when he was presented with a similar question.
There's been some headlines. I just want to clear this up. Yes or no, do you consider Israel an apartheid state?
I said that was directional as it relates to what Freeman was arguing about the annexation of the West Bank. So no, but in the context of his pursuit in the hard and the far right, I align with that concern and that thinking that was expressed very pointedly by Tom Freeman.
Yeah, so you think they're potentially on the path to becoming an apartheid state if they continue?
My biggest concern, my red flag, is Bibi Netanyahu, period, full stop. Mm-hmm.
It's all about Bibi Netanyahu. So that aside, let's talk about Israel, something new and exciting for us here at TYT. But as you're probably very aware, Netanyahu's coalition includes very far-right extremist people like the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who recently wrote this on X. He said, for every tear of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers must weep. All of Lebanon must burn. With all due respect to the Americans, Israel must make it clear to the entire world that the blood of our sons and the security of our citizens are not forfeit. All of Lebanon must burn. Our supreme duty is to protect the citizens of Israel and the soldiers of the IDF. And this commitment takes precedence over every other consideration. I told the prime minister, even in our private meetings, for every tear of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers must weep. It's unbelievable the things that come out of these people's mouths, and they still think that they're the most moral army in the world. It makes no sense. But speaking of Lebanon, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich recently called for Israel to annex and occupy southern Lebanon. He also called for 1 million settlers to invade the West Bank. But as Mehdi Hassan and Bernie discussed, Netanyahu is up for re-election very soon, and he is facing opposition figures such as former Israeli army chief Gadi Eisenkot. So the former general is considered the architect of the Dahiyat Doctrine, an Israeli strategy of striking urban areas with overwhelming military support force to deter militant groups, which was put into use during the 2006 Lebanon war. There's also Naftali Bennett, who recently stated the following. She said, I will not allow a Palestinian state to be established. I am not handing over territory, period. I am not committing suicide for anyone. I do not recognize a Palestinian state. It will not happen. And speaking of a Palestinian state, the Israeli Knesset passed a resolution stating that it would never happen. The resolution that was passed 68-9 altogether rejects the establishment of a Palestinian state, even as part of the negotiated settlement with Israel. They also recently passed tax cuts for West Bank settlements, so there is incentive there for settlers to go over there. But we will end on some polling on the young people in Israel. So let's see what if what Bernie had to say is right. According to the poll conducted back in February, 75, that is a percentage of first-time Jewish Israeli voters who identify as right-wing. Israel's left has spent years telling itself that the next generation would rescue it. The young, educated, connected cohort coming of age in a globalized country it believed would eventually drift toward the liberal center, as young people in other democracies supposedly do. Midgum's data says the opposite is happening. The drift is going the other direction and it's accelerating. And polling conducted back in April reached a very similar conclusion. They found that a majority of first-time voters in Israel's upcoming Knesset elections, young people between the ages of 18 and 22, identify as right-wing. The survey finds that 56% of this age group considers itself right-wing, compared to with 44% of Israelis aged 23 and older. Cenk, that is very startling, although I don't know, it's not startling, it's not surprising. We've seen the way that these people, especially the young people, have been speaking about Palestine and Palestinians and their right to be there and things like that. So it perhaps is not shocking that the youth is becoming more and more indoctrinated into the right-wing way of thinking. Yeah. What are your thoughts as to why this is happening?
So first of all, you have to understand what right wing and left wing means in Israel. So if you're calling yourself right wing in Israel, that is like extraordinarily right wing, because listen to what Yaz just read you. All of their candidates are in favor of the Iran war, the war in Lebanon, the genocide in Gaza. So even the left wing is voting for people that are like, yay, genocide. So imagine what the right wing is in Israel. Well, you don't have to imagine it. They're voting for people like Ben-Gvir, who said all of Lebanon must burn. And sometimes people get upset when I make comparisons to the Nazis, but the Nazis said all the Jews should burn. And now very important, relevant players inside the Israeli government that basically control the government, because if Ben-Gvir leaves this whole time, Netanyahu's government was gonna fall apart. So he listened to everything Ben-Gvir and Smotrich wanted, besides which Netanyahu agrees with them. They're saying that all the Lebanese must burn. That is what Nazis say. So that, like when you think right wing, don't think like, oh, they're for slightly lower taxes. No, right wing in Israel these days is people who say burn all of our enemies and kill them all, slaughter them all. So this country is in a lot of trouble. Culturally, Israel is lost. And then we have people like Gavin Newsom, but again, not to pick on him, almost every corporate Democrat, and the Republicans aren't even bothering. The Republicans are busy licking Netanyahu's boots and saying how great it is that he's murdering everyone. But the corporate Democrats are pretending it's Bibi, as he said, full stop, period, just Bibi, just Bibi. That's why Naftali Bennett's telling you that he's never going to recognize a Palestinian state. So no, it's not just Bibi, it's all of Israel. And not everyone in Israel, of course, there's great human rights organizations, some of their press is pretty good, and obviously there's some faction of liberals left in that country. But overall, no, they're in a very, very bad place. It happens to countries from time to time. They slip into fascism, and it doesn't happen to all countries, but it does to countries that have extreme unchecked power and a massive victimhood complex. So that's where the Germans were. Their Wehrmacht and their army somehow miraculously got to a point where they looked like they were invincible between World War I and World War II, but they were so aggrieved by World War I, they thought they were the world's biggest victims, and they'd been victimized by the Jews and by all the European powers, and they were gonna strike back, and they had to protect themselves, and they have to do self-defense. And so that's true of almost any fascist government that takes over. and unfortunately, it affects the entire culture. So at this point, there's no question Bernie's right, and I appreciate him and I'm proud of him for saying it. But we've lost the culture battle in Israel, and so as their media continues to say the same things that rile people up and enable their worst instincts, the situation gets worse and worse. Because if you live in Israel, based on my conversations with people who live in Israel and who are reporters in Israel, what you have is a culture that is constantly saying, we're all gonna die. The Arabs, the Palestinians, the Lebanese, all of them, they wanna murder every single one of us. If they even gain the slightest little advantage, not forget advantage, if they have the slightest little power, we're all gonna die and all your children are gonna be dead on the ground. They're all anti-Semites. We've done absolutely nothing wrong, ever, ever, ever. Those are all monster, savage Muslims, and now some Christians in Lebanon as well, and in Gaza and West Bank, and they're all monsters, and they're gonna kill us, so we gotta kill them first. And it's only because we're trying to protect our kids. I mean, we're the good guys, so we have to murder them. And the population, and especially the young, growing up in that media and in that culture, have decided, yeah, we've gotta make sure they all burn because we're the victims. So Yaz, I don't see a way out of this. I mean, what are we gonna do? Change Israeli media? Change Israeli culture? I think the only thing that could change it, honestly, is defeat. And so I don't mean like Israel gets wiped out or any of those paranoid fantasies they have. I mean, they lose a war to Iran, something happens, they begin to get back to sanity, that they're not invincible, that they can't just murder everyone around them and have no consequences. Until there are some degree of consequences, and I don't want anybody getting killed, but I don't see how this changes at all unless there's some consequences. Not my job to deliver those consequences, but except one of them, which is to cut them off from all of our aid. Why are we enabling fascists to do all these disgusting things with absolutely no hope of turnaround?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are no consequences. There haven't been any consequences. They continue to push and do more and more of the things that the rest of the world is asking them to stop doing, except that's all anyone has done is ask them very nicely to stop doing what you're doing over there. They've been condemned by the ICC. Benjamin Netanyahu has an arrest warrant out for him from the ICC. The rest of the world, apart from us here in the United States, are so against everything that they're doing, and yet no one has stopped them. No one has given them any more than a slap on the wrist. We continue to give them weapons. We continue to give them munitions, even when we don't even have the munitions to spare right now. And we're gonna talk about that later on in the show. But you're right, there's no consequences here. But as far as like how we got here, this has all been very deliberate. This has been a decades-long campaign to turn the people, especially the young people of Israel, further and further to the right wing, further and further towards the fascism and the authoritarianism that we're starting to see over there. Not starting to, that we are seeing over there. The entitlement, the way that they feel that they're always right, the way that they feel that they're more special and more important than everyone else, that one Israeli mother's tears is worth like 1,000 Lebanese mother. Just who thinks like that? It's unbelievable. And we are going to talk a little bit more about that in a later story on the show as well. But there's so many instances where they believe biblically that they really are a special chosen people, and how you overcome that kind of thinking will take years, if not decades, right? And the fact that they are targeting younger people, the fact that they invite young people from around the world, young Jewish people, to come to Israel, come stay here, learn about the culture, see how great we are. The fact that they're doing all of that, it's all so intentional, it's so deliberate. They know what they're doing, they know what they've been doing, and now they have a population of young people, 75% of whom identify as right wing. And it was also so good that you clarified what left and right wing even means for Israel. But when you were talking about it, it's not so far off from us here in the United States. Our left wing party is still technically the Democratic Party. And there are very, very few Democrats who are in Congress who have taken a stance against Israel, or who have even called what is happening in Palestine a genocide. But you have to assume just from what we've seen over here that the propaganda is rampant over there. If we already know how bad it is here, like it's only got to be so much worse over there. And you're absolutely right about the victim complex. We hear that from them. Apparently, we're all anti-Semites here at TYT because we don't like seeing people be killed and being kicked out of their homes. But I'm going to save the rest for the next story.
Yeah, just last couple of things here. So, in my interaction with Jews in America, and I know literally thousands of Jewish Americans, not one of them that I know believes that they're the chosen people and they're superior to others. Could a couple of stragglers here in America believe that? Sure, there's religious fundamentalists here as well, but that's a very, very rare thing in America. But I think that they have lost touch with the people back in Israel, because the people back in Israel, an enormous percentage of them think that they are the chosen people and a superior race. That's why and all of their government officials say, yeah, Judea and Samaria is ours because it was given to us by God, and we are superior to the Palestinians, and we're going to drive them out and take it. Judea and Samaria is the West Bank. So that there's over 3 million Palestinians there. So, and if you ask them, how dare you say that you're going to do ethnically cleanse 3 million Palestinians? They don't really even consider them fully human. They go, no, God promised it to us. We are the chosen people. And if you think they don't think that, you're factually incorrect. You can call anyone you want an anti-Semite. You can call us anti-Semites. You can call all of America anti-Semites. And at this point, that's what American media does. They just declare the whole country anti-Semitic when we say factual things that are definitely true. So what percentage of Israelis believe that they are a superior race like the Germans did, the Übermensch, and that they are chosen by God? The Germans had written into their buckle belts, Gott mit uns. It means God is with us. It's literally what the Israelis are saying, literally. And so 1,001 ratio, what kind of a monster says things like that? Only the most immoral army in the world would say that. So I'm ethnically Turkish. Let's take any one of our historic enemies from back in the day, Greeks, Armenians, Kurds. So let's take the closest one these days, the Kurds, right? Or again, any of them. Is one Turkish life worth 1,000 Kurdish lives or 1,000 Greek lives? Of course not. What kind of a monster would say that? No, one Turkish life is worth one Greek life or one Armenian life or one Kurdish life. Anyone that's a decent human being thinks that way. People who are monsters and fascists say, if one of us is harmed, we're gonna murder 1,000 innocent people on your side. 1,000 mothers are going to weep and we're going to burn all of you alive. Nazis say that. So because American media is such a loyal servant of Israel, they don't accurately relay what is happening in Israel as we speak. In fact, anytime that anyone does accurately portray to you, I mean, we read you polls, we read you their actual comments. All of their leaders, not just Netanyahu, the top leaders running against them. They're all for genocide. They're all for brutalizing the Palestinians and never letting them go. And our media says, no, they're wonderful, innocent victims. So there's gigantic propaganda that turned Israel right-wing and dangerously fascistically right-wing. And our media goes, oh great, let's do that here in America. But by the way, Americans are not the superior race, Israel is. We can't question them. If you question them, we're gonna eliminate you from the national conversation. We're gonna call you an anti-Semite and destroy you on behalf of Israel. What is that? What kind of ludicrous situation are we in? And what are they going to turn our culture into if we keep listening to this mainstream media and our gross politicians that have almost all been legally bribed by the Israeli lobby? 94% of Congress. So they're trying to destroy our culture while they've already destroyed Israel's, and we shouldn't stand for it. We moved here, my family did, for American culture, freedom, equality, justice for all. We didn't move here for Israeli culture. America's supposed to be proud. It's way past time that we stood up and insisted on our values and not some Middle Eastern country that's on some sort of fascistic, religious fundamentalist nut job mission that they think got sent by a mythical creature they call God, but I'm not sure that it's God that they're listening to.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets its wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.